Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the Pervasive Media Studio Lunchtime Talk. These talks are live every Friday at 1 p.m, both here in the building and live online. Hello, online. So whether you're in Bristol or you're far away, you can join in the conversation. So my name is Martin O'Leary. I'm the studio community lead here. I'm a white man in my 40s with long hair and a beard, wearing a red jumper today. Every Friday, we throw open the doors of the Pervasive Media Studio for Open Studio Friday, where we offer you the chance to spend some time in our space by hot desking alongside our residents and staff from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So especially a big welcome to those of you who are new to the studio. Can anyone who's new to the studio put your hand up? Okay, we've got a few today. This bit is for you. Welcome. What is the Pervasive Media Studio? We are a diverse and collaborative community exploring creativity and technology, everything from comedy to coding and product development to performance art. And we're a partnership between Watershed, where we are right now, the University of the West of England and the University of Bristol, and we're funded by Arts Council England. And what we do is we offer studio space, desks, meeting rooms, events and opportunities, all for free to our residents as part of a spirit of generosity and mutual exchange. And we're a space for people to take risks with embryonic ideas and to make some time for collaboration. So a few quick notes before we begin. Please do feel free to move around, make a cup of tea in the kitchen back there, grab a glass of water. Please don't use the microwave, it makes sounds. We do have a quiet space just to, well, my left, your right, just around the corner here. So if you need to take a break at any point, you can pop in there. It's fairly well soundproofed. Feel free to pop in, have a sit. If you hear a fire alarm, that is probably real. We do not have any fire drills planned, so the fire exits are at the other end of the studio. Again, my left, your right, down there at either end. The studio team will direct you towards them in the event of a fire. And there are accessible toilets and baby change in the corridor over there next to the kitchen. There will be a Q&A at the end of the talk. Those of you who are watching online, pop your questions in the YouTube chat. Vic will be your voice in the room today. If you're in the building, please raise your hand and I will pass the microphone around. You can get news on all of our future talks by heading to watershed.co.uk/studio, at PM Studio UK on Twitter, at Pervasive Media Studio at mastodon.social on Mastodon, or at Pervasive Media Studio on Instagram. All right, so we've got quite a few speakers for today, but our lead speaker for today, who's going to introduce the others, is Helen Manchester. Helen is Professor of Participatory Socio-Digital Futures at the University of Bristol and Principal Investigator on the Connecting Through Culture as We Age project, exploring how participation in all forms of culture can influence well-being and feelings of social connection as we age. She's going to talk about the work that team have been doing with a group of 19 co-researchers aged 60 to 75, in which their voices, lived experiences and expertise shaped the co-design of digital cultural experiences and products. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Helen.
Thanks. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming, and thanks to Pervasive Media Studio for the invitation to talk. I'll be presenting today alongside one of my colleagues, a researcher at the university, Top Foster, who's been part of the research team, and also alongside two of our co-researchers, co-designers. We can debate that later. Fanny Eaton-Hall, who's here with us now, and Carmelita Groves, who is on her way, we hope. And she may enter halfway through, but we'll see what happens. Both Fanny and Carmen were part of one of the prototype teams, and we also have other people part of that team, including Annie at the back, and they're going to talk a little bit about that project later during the presentation. So, connecting through culture as we age. Just, I guess, to set the scene, when we think about the words creativity, culture, and digital innovation, and if we searched for these on Google or using ChatGPT, we would often find images of young people, of people who are able-bodied, of people who are mobile. And those are the kind of imaginaries that often circulate around creativity, culture, and digital innovation. So we were really interested in thinking differently about that, and to think about how the voices and lives of older, and particularly older minoritized communities, might be represented in these spaces. And on this project, we particularly worked with disabled, socioeconomically and racially minoritized groups of older adults. So that keeps happening. I don't know why. So just to set the scene a little bit around digital innovation and aging, First of all, aging itself is often set up in society as a kind of social and economic burden on society. I'm not saying it is, I'm saying that is how it is set up. So often you hear about the need for techno fixes for our aging societies. Like, how can we fix this problem of aging through designing technologies to help older adults? Often here as well, because of the kind of neoliberal economic systems that we work in, this is also seen as a potential economic opportunity. So there's a lot of talk about the silver economy and other kind of economies that can support this kind of aging digital innovation. What we find often in this sector, which is often called the gerontechnology sector, is that particular imaginaries, particular ideas of older adults are represented there, often as frail, often as in need of care, or with terrible chronic health issues that need to be somehow solved through these technologies that are going to just eradicate things that are problematic. So what we see is that often these technologies are designed around the physical and health needs of older adults, and there's less concentration on creativity, on passions, on desires, on connections with culture and art as well. So we see less in digital innovation for older adults in those kind of spaces. And we also find that often there's a universalist approach to design. So an approach to design where it's assumed that a one-size-fits-all is going to work, rather than recognizing the very different experiences of aging that many of us have, and how inequalities that we experience across the life course might also impact on that. So, oh dear, sorry. I'm too fast with my clicking. So the project really set out to question those logics of gerontechnology and the way that those kind of processes tend to work alongside older adults. Rather than looking at the health needs of older adults particularly, we wanted to start by asking about their participation in arts and culture and the things that give them joy and the things that they're passionate about. And also we were interested in thinking about how we might increase well-being and also social connection for older adults. So the project, as Martin said, had at its heart a digital co-design process that centered the voices and the lives and the lived experiences of the older adults we're working alongside. And just to give a brief intro to our co-researcher, co-designer cohort. So as Martin said, between 18 and 20 co-researchers who worked with us throughout the 3 years of the project. And actually, it's quite important to say that this project was quite well funded. It was funded by a research council for a 3-year period, which makes a real difference when you're trying to do the kind of slow design, co-design work that we were trying to do, and particularly alongside minoritized communities of older adults. So we worked really carefully over time with community organisations who were already connected in with minoritized communities of older adults. And we recruited alongside them, and we also worked alongside them throughout the project. So they were paid to work with us to hold up and work alongside the co-researchers as we went through the programme. They were an incredible group of older adults with a wide range of different languages, different literacies, different sort of approaches to the digital and digital literacies, different creative interests and experiences, and very diverse life experiences as well. So yeah, I did say earlier, we started off calling the cohort co-researchers. Some people started to identify much more with the idea of being a co-designer because they were involved in design processes as we went through. Oh, so I'm going to hand over to my colleague Tot. We're going to play some films that the co-researchers made.
Thanks, Helen. So as part of the early stages of the project, we were all getting to know each other and learning about the lives of co-researchers. And one of the co-researchers said to me, knowing that I had a background in film and video, please, can we make a video? I feel so strongly about ageist things that I see happen around me. I really want to express myself, do something about it. And then that snowballed and we ended up making 13 films across the co-researcher cohort. So what was really interesting about that was that we discovered that in collaborating on these films, what Helen was saying, there wasn't a one process that fits all. There wasn't a single way of doing this. We had to work out together what was going to work for us as people. So it was all the production of the films was based in our relationships rather than based in some external view of what collaborating on a film should be. So how the films were made varied from animation workshops run down at Wellspring Centre through to people taking on making the films totally themselves. Fanny, you made a film completely by yourself. Through to me really offering a lot of support to people to make them and just the ideas coming out of conversations with them. So I just wanted to show you some clips. This is about 7 minutes long and it's
Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah, Helen will do it. It's about 7 minutes long and it's clips from 5 of the 13 films. And you can see the variety of voices that have been allowed to emerge through these films because of this bespoke, relational and situated way of working with the older adults. Thanks, Helen. The first one is made by Eleanor, who's the...
Beware the beige, a colour between dismal and neutral. A done colour, done roaming, done with everything. Some of us have got retirophobia. We are the baby boomers that you want to sell to. But we don't want your stereotypes. It's the wrong lane. Exit only. We are the grey pound that you have as a target market. We don't all want comfort and care and retirement homes. It's not a retirement lane, but a dead-end street you pedal. I'm not going on autopilot into my future, yet to be written.
I'm Erica, and I just want to tell you a little bit about what brings me joy. I love the way you get the sky dappling through the tree leaves. I go out onto the cycle track, which is just at the bottom of my road. Just look at that tree, look at the bark. It's all like it's been hit and whacked and banged, but it's so beautiful, it's so tactile. And it gives me great pleasure when I get home and actually look at them and think, oh, I done that. The best ones go up on the wall. Being creative brings me a peace of mind and it makes me feel that I'm still worth something. And needed. Yeah.
Barefoot, I wander at the water's edge. The incoming tide creeps a little further up the beach, then slowly recedes. There's that whispered fizz and pop as the parched sand absorbs the brine, sucks it down to the thirsty mouths of shellfish, crustaceans, and mollusks. And here I am, marvelling as if noticing it for the very first time. Hush, listen. A few hours later I return. It's early evening now. The tide has turned and the sand is damp. Ebb tide. All along the strand line, hungry crows forage.
That's when I going in town.
My tomorrow must be greater than today.
Yeah.
His hands are not short that it cannot reach to you. His eyes are never blind, he cannot see your teeth. His ears are not deaf that he cannot hear you cry. Your tomorrow must be greater than today. Your tomorrow must be greater than today.
No matter what I face, no matter what I see,
no matter what comes my way,
no matter how I cry, one thing I know, definitely my tomorrow.
That's it, I'm afraid. Could watch those all day, personally. So that gives you a real flavour, hopefully, of the co-researchers and the real diversity of the people that were involved in the project. So I'm going to move on. Thank you, Tot, as well, for... I mean, it was amazing. Tot filmed all of those just on a mobile phone as well. So, really incredible. Sorry, I'm going to do the boring bit now on our inspirations in terms of theories and ideas, I suppose, and what we were working with in the project. So we were trying to question those logics I talked about before around digital innovation. So not thinking about this as like a one-size-fits-all, and not thinking about this as a kind of solutionist approach to designing technologies, very much trying to work against that, in fact. So we wanted to draw on feminist research practices and feminist politics to challenge this idea of innovation as being a view from nowhere, or the neutrality of that. So very much seeing knowledge as historically and socially situated, and that it's impossible to do work without situating the work in the place where people are and the places that people have experienced across time as well. So we were particularly interested in feminist standpoint theories, but also more post-human feminist ideas. And I'm not going to talk much about that now, but I'm really happy to later if anyone would like to speak about that. We drew, in terms of design, on design justice movement and Constanta-Chock's book in particular, which really outlines that design can, anyone can participate meaningfully in design, and design can happen anywhere. So taking it away from the spaces where a designer is in control, or where there are specific spaces where design happens, to thinking about everywhere as a potential design site and everyone as a potential designer. So the design justice movement also encourages us to think seriously about how design currently works and how we might think about it or rethink it. So with a focus on things like values, on the practices, on the narratives that we're creating around design, the sites of design, and also the pedagogies of design. How are we actually doing this together? We also drew on some work by a South American thinker, Arturo Escobar, who has written a book called Designs for the Pluriverse. And he particularly talks about the importance of including indigenous voices in design processes as well. So for him, it's about rethinking design away from this expert-driven process, not being about designing objects and services necessarily, but rather, and you can see in the quote here, design practices that are participatory, socially orientated, situated, and open-ended, and that challenge business as usual mode of being, producing, and consuming. So really challenging some of those ideas that I presented around aging and digital innovation at the beginning. So from these inspirations, we've sort of been working with, and this is an evolving process as well. We've just written a paper that talks about this idea of careful co-design a little bit more, drawing on feminist ideas. So again, I'm happy to share that if you want to get in touch afterwards. But we have 5 sort of touch points that we were working with around this idea of careful co-design. So the first one is around grounding design in the everyday lives of older adults. So seeing design as a response to their situated everyday lives, the things you saw in the films, their experiences, their passions, as expressed by them. Secondly, centering the voices and expertise of older adults who are directly impacted by the things you're trying to design, the people who you are designing for and with. So not seeing designers as experts or the only experts in the room, but also recognizing expertise by experience too. Thirdly, design as an emergent rather than a fixed practice. So this involves that kind of ongoing care in terms of attentiveness and responsiveness to what's happening, and that things can change quickly and people's ideas can change quickly as well. Being responsive to thinking about power and how it mediates co-design sites, practices, and relationships. So this is thinking about asymmetries of power, really important, especially when you're working and have full-time roles at the university where you're being paid to work and the people you're working alongside don't. And also thinking and reflecting on the extractive research processes that have often happened in the past as well, and recognizing the effects of those. But also thinking about how knowledges and design are often raced and classed and gendered, and taking that really seriously. And the last one is around sustainable community-led and owned design outcomes. So again, against the universalistic idea of design. So this is just a little diagram, we don't have time to go into detail about everything we did today. That's going to be impossible in the time that we have and to allow for questions. But we moved through different design sites during the project. So we started it off in the homes and neighbourhoods alongside co-researchers. We then moved into working in community organisations, place-based and equalities-based organisations. And then we worked with Norwest Media Centre in their community makerspace to introduce ideas of design through them. And then we ended up here at the Watershed. So in probably, this was definitely the most mainstream design space that we worked with on the project. And I'll say a little bit about that later as well. You might want to read that poem, but I'll talk as you read if you don't mind. So that first phase was working carefully alongside older adults in their homes and neighbourhoods. We used creative methods, asking them to create an album that expressed their sense of social connection, sense of digital connection, and the things that were important to them. We asked them to do that in however they wanted to do it. So we had albums full of amazing stuff that the co-researchers had contributed to the project, including images and poems that people produced as part of it as well. So I think Jeannie describes herself, this is Jeannie, describes herself as being a woman in her 70s with Indian heritage who is curious, creative, and contemplative. So Jeannie lives on her own in a single-storey social housing block, and like many of the co-researchers, doesn't get out of that house very much. She finds it very difficult to come out of her house due to chronic ill health. But through the album, we really discovered how she connects in a really deep way with the place where she is. So she would write poems about the hedge at the back of her house, for example, and the changing elements of that hedge over the seasons, and shared with us that depth of connection with the place where she is, for example. It's important to say, though, that co-researchers' homes were not always places that were creative or positive places, and I think this probably illustrated by Jeannie telling us that the thing she likes best about where she lives now is she has her own front door, kind of echoing that in previous social housing places where she'd lived, that wasn't something that was available to her. So I think through this first bit, we also built relationships and long-term trust between ourselves, as Tot was saying earlier, and the co-researchers. And it was really important that we could reflect on all of those power relations that I was talking about earlier as well through that process, particularly on our own positionality, our own race, gender, class, and how that might affect the way that we were understanding the lives of the co-researchers. So being really careful that we weren't jumping to conclusions about things that we saw or things that we experienced alongside co-researchers. I'm going to, I'll talk about this a little bit. I think just what did we learn through this first phase? The importance of everyday creativity in co-researchers' lives, and that they were using creativity in lots of different ways for their own well-being, not necessarily for audiences, but also for visibility and to express identities as well. I think for the communities we were working alongside, the community organisations and their connection to place and community was also really vital in terms of their access to arts and cultural activities as well. After the Homes and Neighbourhoods, we moved to work with Norwest Media Centre in their makerspace at the factory that many of you will probably know. It's, again, very community-focused. It was a great place to introduce co-researchers to design, to do some co-creation with co-researchers. And this process was really embedded in their lived experiences. Started out with journey mapping, very much working from what the older adults were interested in. So we did a 4-part workshop series with them, and we offered that in person and in a hybrid way as well. These were small groups, though. We did like 8 co-researchers at a time, which is important in the next bit I'm going to say, I think. So the next bit, we worked here with Pervasive Media Studio with Emma and Joe and Faraha. Amazing experience of working alongside them. They helped us to recruit 25 co-designers who are creative technologists, community organisations, artists and others to come along to some co-design workshops. And we've got a few people represented here who were those recruits, including Roz here and Annie at the back as well, and George, who's there. Yeah. So we held 3 co-design workshops, and the themes of those were based on the things that had come out of the previous bit of the research. So it was very much about what older adults had told us were important. In the end, we had, and you can see one of the workshops up here, there were probably about 50 people in Watershed. So it was very different to what we'd done before, where mostly we had 10 or 12 people together. We were keen to do this because we wanted the voices, the bodies and the life worlds of minoritized older adults to be more represented in this kind of space, at Harbourside, a design space, somewhere that's famous for creativity and digital innovation. So we really wanted to bring people into this space. We worked really hard to design what I'm calling transitional objects to support our co-researchers into this space and to support the co-designers to get to know the older adults as well, including these a co-researcher booklet introducing the co-researchers in their own words. And we also interviewed the co-designers to tell us a little bit about their practice so that we could feed that back to the co-researchers. But perhaps we underestimated some stuff. And Joe and Emma and Faraha and I have talked about this a fair bit, and it's something we'd like to continue working on. But the cultural geographies of the city, for example. So one of our co-researchers, and this is not unusual, never been here, never been to the Watershed, although they've lived in Bristol for a really long time. So there's a big barrier there to participation in this space. I think also we learned a lot about pace, timing, and scale. 50 people in one room was a bit too much. We could have maybe recruited less artists and creative technologists and worked more slowly over time with them in smaller spaces, I think, because sensory environments were tricky, it was loud, and there were things that got in the way of us working together. Having said that, we did it. We also tried to run these workshops in a hybrid way, so that we had so much learning around that. And again, we can talk about that more later if you'd like to hear more about that. But lots and lots of learning, I think. So I'm going to hand over to Tot again now at this point to tell you a little bit more about the 6 prototype projects that came out. And I think you're going to show films again, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could set the films up, Helen.
I'll do that while you talk.
So what emerged out of those workshops were 6 projects that were funded and brought together all of our learning so far. And the important thing about these projects was that we didn't know exactly what the outcome would be from them when they started. It was the process that was really important. And the process then was based on workshopping, because workshopping was the way that created a kind of non-hierarchical structure to the development of the products of those prototype projects. So 6 were produced. We've got Fanny and Carmen here who are going to talk about the 6th one, Expressive Pockets, in a moment. But I've cut down, you can see them on our website, all the full films, but everyone's had a film made about it, the prototype projects. So the other 5 are represented here by 90-second to 2-minute clips of each one's films. And if you want to see all the films in full, they're at the end, on the last slide that we'll leave up.
I go around the streets, right, and there's all kinds of things chucked out, and it looks a mess, and I think, oh, I'd love to take that and do something with it. So I thought, wouldn't it be great, fantastic, if we had workshops and stuff where people make stuff out of all sorts of things.
So what are you making?
I'm making an allotment. The roller coaster that goes all around
the world.
It's a bit of a conservatory / greenhouse. So the idea is just to produce food and social space for people to sit in and enjoy the scenery and the green.
So at the beginning of the project, I met Ruth, who has ideas all the time. And one of the big ideas that she explained to me was this dream of a future city where people worked together, played together, recycled everything that they could find.
Today we're 3D scanning some of the models that the team have been making. So we're taking like hundreds of photos around it, which then gets processed and returned to you in a 3D model that we can then put back into the environment in augmented reality.
Do you keep moving up and down like you said?
Yes, yeah. So you're just trying to get as much cover of it as possible.
So we've created an Instagram account. You'll be able to access AR filters which relate to the workshops. So you can then see the object and place it wherever you want to within the real world through your camera viewfinder.
"66, still thinking I'm Marilyn Monroe, willing to give 69 a go, setting a trend."
The good news is coming. The bad news is gone. I say
She sat,
I can't do what I
shivering
want to do
on the doorstep of change. She decided to try and open the door a little.
Have a peep. Sometimes getting older is just about showing up.
Retirement Reloaded is an interactive bookwork project.
Retirement Reloaded is a reimagining of what it is to be an older woman and challenging those stereotypes.
So we have had a series of workshops where we have used creative writing, autobiography, group work.
To share stories, to share experiences.
To come up with and devise individual pieces of writing.
To explore their inner rebel.
There's a lot of power that comes when we share our stories.
Older women get forgotten about, and you may feel inside you personally that you have a lot of wisdom, but it's not necessarily shared.
Stand and Stare are our technical partners on the project. They are very experienced in socially engaged, interactive experiences.
The idea is that it's a combination of a printed book with animated projections. So as you turn the pages, there will be a hidden camera that recognises what page you've turned to, and then it will play a sequence of audio and animations that bring the page to life. And it has a kind of contemplative aspect to it.
To join you to others in surprise.
Four South London girls clutching our bags as we laugh and skip our way to a public washhouse. My granny's public wash place was the sea in Jamaica, somewhere I've heard about, but never seen, except for a spot on a map.
I suppose it kind of originated from kind of my late mother, who took great comfort in memories. And one of those was at the wash house. It was a place that she went to when she first arrived in the UK from St Lucia, alone by ship, and met friends there.
Do our washing with our friends. With our friends.
It's bringing together women. They don't know each other necessarily, to actually kind of honour the memory of forebears and their lives of struggle, which is reflected through the mundaneness, the routine of everyday washing. It's a kind of refusal to disappear for me, so capturing that in a creative way.
Tabletop travel is an idea to bring the world into the homes of people who are isolated.
Tabletop Travels is an immersive dining and cultural experience.
The idea is that you can have this object that comes into your house, fits on a tabletop, and within that you travel to other countries. You taste the flavours of another culture.
This is magical, isn't it? Welcome to my home in New Delhi. You can probably hear the hustle and bustle of the street right outside my door.
I'm housebound, and I wanted a way to expand my life, to explore other cultures, to feel I was learning and still growing.
So Stand and Stare, we call ourselves an interactive design company. So they had developed the concept and the project, and they needed a partner to essentially fabricate and realise their ideas. Design being this kind of tray that then contains So the meal is an Indian meal, and there are certain things about an Indian meal, like the metal bowls and the way it would be served, that we want to kind of mirror as much as possible. In each bowl there'll be a different dish and a different course, and with each of those there's a different piece of audio and a story that goes with them. So as you place each one into the centre of the box, the technology recognises which one you've chosen and then triggers a piece of audio that tells you about that piece of food and why it's been chosen for this experience.
Ah yes, the samosa. Who doesn't love a samosa?
So the project's called Murmurations, Nothing About Us Without Us.
and it's a project that has gathered wisdom through speaking to older people, disabled people and queer people, and also the intersections of all those groups.
So like estrangement came a lot in the queer stories.
So we developed our project through 6 workshops, and we work in an equitable way with each other.
I was asked to join with the group as an older person and as a disabled person having ME.
In the workshops that we created, we heard such brilliant strategies, experiences, wisdom, that we wanted to find a way to gather all of the wisdom that we heard from elder and disabled and queer folk into one place that felt like an equitable space that could hold all those different stories across difference.
So we decided that a blanket was the best way to put all these stories together. So this is the tactile blanket that we've created. And when you touch it, it uses conductive material so that you hear the person's story.
I hope that it serves as a provocation as well as an art piece. We know quite a few people on the project who use the word housebound. And so it's an acknowledgement that some people are never going to be able to make it to the theatre or the art gallery, no matter how many ramps you put in. So we wanted to make something that could also be packed away and sent to people that they just plug in at home and they could have the whole experience at home. And it's not a version B of the experience, but the actual experience at home.
So you can see how the projects as a whole are trying to address this issue of producing things that don't respond to ageing in a homogenous way, but really embrace the diversity of life experience and personhood of all the people who've been involved in them. And we have Fanny Eaton Hall and Carmen Groves here from the 6th project, which is Expressive Pockets. Fanny, Carmen, do you want to come forward to the front? Oh, you come on your bike if you want. You all right?
The chair with arms there.
I was moving the chair out of the way
There you go.
but instead. Yeah.
Do you want me to hold it so it doesn't move? Yeah?
Oh.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Great.
Is this the right slide for you, Fanny, on the next one?
I don't...
Yeah.
Did
Oh,
those.
yeah.
I'm just
Carry
looking at the
on.
word. Hello, everyone. It was actually here at one of the workshops that I met the designers who were going to help produce this project of Expressive Pockets, which was very exciting. So Malcolm Hamilton became project leader. For those of you who know Malcolm, that's not surprising. Annie was a designer. She runs a company designing fabrics and things. Becca Rose, Danny Hale from the factory at Knoll West Media Centre, and of course I already knew Carmen and Ruby as the fellow. So we looked at ways of incorporating technology into fabrics that allowed people to show and tell what interested them and their life stories. We knew we wanted a workshop format because we wanted the idea of people socialising as they did something. And got to know each other. We also did them as a hybrid later on, but that didn't quite work as well, but we'll maybe come to that. We wanted to make something that was small and individual because we wanted them to be able to take it home with them when it was completed. And so this led to the idea of a simple piece of fabric this size that could then be turned into a pocket. I mean, this was the original prototype idea I came up with on the basis that, well, when I go shopping, I come back, I always use these bags, I don't take another bag, and my keys are at the bottom of the bag. So I put pockets on bags and the phone and whatever else it is. So that was the start off. And that size of fabric was just nice for people to work with in the workshop, not too big. The next consideration was ease of making, because a lot of the co-researchers used to sew, used to knit, but either their eyesight was getting tricky or they had arthritic fingers. So sewing was a bit problematic, and we came up with this idea of asking them to supply us with a picture that meant something to them, that we would then print onto a piece of fabric. So, no, of course I haven't got one here. Well, we used that one as an example. And then we would also ask them to produce 3 words that were important, relevant to that picture, important to them, that we printed out on vinyl. When I say we, it was the factory at the North West Media Centre. So they printed out words and shapes and signs, and then we had a second workshop where we started making. And people could bring little bits and pieces that they could either iron on with Wonder Web or stick on with glue, and we had coloured pens so they could write things. So they designed the pocket themselves. Let me just see. In the final workshop, where are we? When we printed the picture, we also printed a QR code. So in the final workshop, we added sound. Now, they could either record this themselves, or we used BBC sound effects and royalty-free music site, so they could get, so that then they could put their phone. And throughout it, we were encouraging people to use their phone. We set up WhatsApp groups for each of the workshops so that we could collect their pictures and their sounds. But it also meant they had a way of socialising when we weren't at workshops, which was quite interesting. There were some very nice conversations came out of that. Now, when we've done that. For our first workshop, the prototype workshop that we did, we decided we needed to have a theme to, just bring it all together. And we chose the theme of rebellious ageing. But this then showed us the importance of words, because we saw rebellious ageing as sort of, quite, Greenham column, and it was all a bit fun and carrying banners. But for some people, it was more violent than that. And I think, Carmen, you've got a story about the picture you chose and the words you chose.
Yeah, let me try to speak slowly, because I talk like Jamaican because I'm Jamaican. It's my part that I pick. It's about Paul Bogle. Is if you go on the internet and you put Paul Bogle in, then you will see what I'm talking about. He is the one that fight when they come up with the rebellion. And I was saying, that's war, because he fight the war, the rebellion for us to come through slavery in St. Thomas, which is that he do for us to know. So when they come up with that, that's what I could say about that, because to me, that was about rebellion. What rebellion is, it's war, So that is my understanding about it. And you can put it in on internet, and then you will see it of Paul Bogle, you have Nanny, you have a few of them that from that fight the war for us to become free from slavery. That's my point.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you. Thank you.
And that was the pocket that Carmen produced.
And that's
the pocket.
Oh yes, that's Paul Bogle there. This statue was standing before the courthouse in Marant Bay, St. Thomas. But since I'm here, I think the courthouse burned down, and I don't know what they do with him.
I think the other...
And that
sorry.
one is about I go to church, and that's my tambourine. I play tambourine. So I just send that one. So that's what I like. That's my habit. Hobby.
I think, can I just say the other thing that demonstrates is, although we thought about it as being a pocket on the bag, this little oblong of fabric, people decided how they wanted to use it. Some put it on an apron. As you can see, Carmen immediately put it on a T-shirt,
Yeah,
and a
me have
number of
2
people did that.
t-shirts.
And some people had it framed. So
Yeah.
that developed. We had the idea, but the actual group of people had their own ideas, and that was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Carmen, Fanny. Did you want to say anything else, Tara? I think we should finish because we want to allow some time for questions as well. Thanks to everyone here for coming along. Cheers.
Oh, sorry.
I think Carmen's going to move out of the way. I'm not going to do that slide. You can read it if you want. Yeah, so any questions? And do get in touch as well. You can contact Tot or I at the university, and also do have a look at our impact stories on our website, and follow us on X if you're still on it. X. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Helen. All right, as Helen said, we are a little tight on time, but I think we got time for a question or two if anyone's got one.
It's more just to say I really enjoyed your talk, and I really appreciated the diversity of different kind of approaches you used, and the different mediums. I was just wondering, because it's quite a long-term project and it looks like you tried out a lot of different things. If you were to do something similar again, what did you learn from this experience, and how would you kind of apply those learnings to do it differently? Because I'm also quite interested in participatory design and how to include people and make it fun and engaging, but actually get an output out of that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've reflected on particularly is bringing the co-designers, the artists and creative technologists in earlier in the process. Maybe not very right at the beginning, but maybe, and probably having less of them as well, not opening up such a big space to that. So I think that's a key learning maybe, particularly. I think just the importance of the slow approach of slowing things down and not trying to rush through processes and practices, and experimenting and listening. Listening is sort of really vital, I think. We don't do enough listening, which sounds a bit trite, but it isn't. I mean, most of the people we worked with were very keen to tell us exactly what they thought of the approaches we were taking, but I don't think they would have done that if we hadn't have built that trust at the beginning, I guess. So I think that was really important. Thank you for the question. I'm happy to chat.
I noticed, sorry, I was a bit late, so I missed quite a lot, but I noticed a lovely lady here had printed onto a normal T-shirt.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you guys needed high quality plain T-shirts and a screen printing link.
I know, Fanny.
If you want to take my number.
Maybe Annie and Fanny could have a chat to you afterwards.
I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
We did think about it, but we did want to work with just a small piece of fabric, and then the maker can decide how they use it. Yeah, we've all... Well, there was another theme, which was the whole point about women not having pockets.
Yeah.
Right?
Not enough pockets in women's clothes. Yeah.
So we need them. Yeah. Can I just say something about that?
All right, great. Do we have any more questions from the room?
Can I just point out the quilt over there, which is the collaboration that we produced for the end of the project. The squares are from nearly all the co-researchers about their feelings about the project. So do look at that, because it gives a voice to all of them.
All right, well, while you're doing that, please join me again in saying thank you to Helen and the team.
Thanks for the invitation.
Okay, so before you all go, today is First Friday, which means that from 5 to 6 p.m. today, we invite you to join us in the studio for a drink and a chat and to see some of the work that our community have been making. And this month, you've actually got the chance to see some of the projects that were made by the Connecting Through Culture co-researchers, so please do come along to that. If you want to stick around in Hot Desk today or find out more about what we do, then please come find one of the studio team and we'll be happy to help. If you're watching online, studio team, can you give us a wave? If you're watching online, please do drop us a line on studio@watershed.co.uk with any questions. Thank you all for being here today, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.